I'm going to talk a little bit about visibility today, and again, the stakes of being ourselves, whether that's in our creative work, in our online presence, in our professional lives, and hopefully offering a few intention setting, affirmation and behavioural stretch tips to encourage you to sort of push the edges a little bit and go out of your comfort zone with how you express and embody your authentic expression. So, the stakes of being ourselves are quite high, and a lot of this is because as children we learn very quickly there's certain societal norms, there's certain standards, there's certain ways to behave that are correct, and when you do not fully adhere to them, you are mocked or ostracised or told off. And through this, we all learn to kind of like wind our neck in, unless you're really somewhere like on the psychopath scale and you don't care what other people think, and you just have no empathy or care for others at all, and you don't need others. I think most of us do experience this thing a bit, and we learn adaptive behaviours to fit in, and I mean up to the age of probably until quite old, I can't think exactly, but I just used to think that I was really authentic and really myself all the time, but actually I recognise so much that like so many of the ways that I behave and so many of the things that I like do or don't do and the hesitations I have and the things that I'm like tiptoeing round are not about wanting to avoid a really uncomfortable feeling of sticking my neck out and being told off or shamed or whatever for doing something different or doing something that's not allowed or doing something that's a bit weird. So it relates to this idea of integrity and what it means to have integrity, be in our own centre, and also I think that on the note of the norms that we find ourselves really like hemmed in by, we have this kind of idea of normal and weird, and obviously now I think we're at a point, I'm not sure, like I'd have to talk to more young people, but I think we're at a point a little bit where being weird is actually cool. And it was a little bit like this when I was younger, but it was not to the extent that it is now. And obviously this will vary in certain age groups, because different age groups and different levels of teenager will have different ideas and conceptions of this. It's changing all the time with different people and different trends that come in. But certainly what we're seeing with a lot of the movements online and a lot of the presence and visibility of things like neurodiversity and queerness and things that are not the norm. It's almost like, and even like depression, mental illness, bipolar, like creative expression, a lot of these things, the tide and the pendulum has swung such that they are very visible, and a lot of people want to identify with that in order to, I guess it gives them like a sense of a good story and meaning behind their experience that can help them understand and help them explain why they have felt like they don't belong in certain areas or contexts. And it's really quite a time to be alive in that way, that there are a lot of these conversations happening, and particularly around things like disabilities and neurodiversity. And I think there's so much more acceptance now than there ever has been. Obviously, there may have been older cultures who really centralised, and I've heard of some cultures that really honour people with certain mental illnesses. Well, it's not even seen as or pathologised as mental illness, because great insight or madness or visions or psychosis, those kinds of things would be seen as indications that that person was like connected to spirits or had some wisdom to offer. And not so much in our society, but I do feel like the pendulum's swinging a little bit, and we are having this acceptance of people's weirdnesses and tics, such that I can I'm really starting to let that kind of fly and expand a bit. And we've got to also recognise that there's this is a great thing on the whole. In terms of visibility, I've talked about the online space in terms of promoting and making things more acceptable and accepting. Obviously for a lot of people there is a reaction, because with any swing one way and with any polarity there is an equal and opposite reaction. So we get reactions of people who feel deeply they're having all kinds of ways of life that they don't agree with, or extremes shoved down their throat, and they want to really hold hard and conservatively maintain that norm. And this is just, I believe that the pendulum swing and any polarity, there is an equal and opposite. So I think that's inevitable. I don't feel that's going to change, and there's not going to suddenly be this mass acceptance of everything that is weird and queer by many normal and conservative people. And we need to find a way to coexist harmoniously together without some cultural war that is playing out mostly in online spaces, and obviously in certain parts of the world, in certain religions, is also playing out. We need to find a way to coexist harmoniously together, and there's a lot of countries in which this doesn't work, and there's more repression of all weirdness, because repression of weirdness and reinforcement of the norm creates a good, healthily repressed state, and all of that hierarchy. And that's the reason that a lot of these places and practices happen. And there are people that say don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Anyway, this is getting out of hand, this conversation, because I'm not particularly talking about radical and weird versus reactionary modes and the culture war. I'm talking about visibility. So let's go back to online. You'll see that in another video. I don't think I'm going to make another video about that because I don't know enough about it. But in terms of the online space, being visible online is a really interesting and explorative and playful space. It's something that we didn't have before, and people are really able to create whole personae and whole performances, whole characters through their online persona that they might not even have in their personal or family or professional life, and they might have it alongside in private, or they might be have this whole thing. And I'm definitely trying to be more me and bring this into all of my real life, whatever that is, but also this online performance container that is self-documentation and sharing on a public forum has really shaped and evolved my understanding and expression hugely, and probably not in an entirely good way, but in an overall good way. That said, there are, again, high stakes that accompany sharing what you are online, and this is why a lot of people, obviously a lot of people are very averse to that, but a lot of people are engaged in this kind of self-expression, self-definition game of being visible online. And the stakes of no one caring and not being seen when you do that are also high, because there's so much saturation now and so many people posting all of the time that we can put our hearts and souls into something, in a post, into our expressions, into our music, into our poetry. We can share it online and no one cares and no one likes it and no one engages. Sorry about that. Just as I was talking about the no engagement or reaction for online posting, the camera battery died and then I replaced it and I put another light on. But yeah, in response, in furtherance of that point about no engagement online, and then you can post a selfie or a booby shot and not a booby shot, free the nipple and all that, but you can do that and like you'll just get loads of engagement. It's really, we've got to be gentle with ourselves, because whilst it's all related to needing to be seen, and this goes back to the inner child, I have videos about this, basically it's important, and really we're all kind of going around like trying to be ourselves, trying to get our needs met, and there are a lot of elusive with an E, and illusionary illusions to help us and point us in the direction of getting these quick hits, and a lot of it's social media wise, like dopamine and the molecule of more, whereas what often we need is the presence and the sense of real, in the moment, here and now connection that serotonin provides for us, when we can really drop in and land and be in our environment and be in co-regulation with other real human beings. On that note, I'm going to give you a few things that you can do to support you in just showing up as yourself and being visible online or in person. The first is behavioural stretches, and I love the idea of behavioural stretches because it's not like you're forcing yourself to do things that are really out of your comfort zone, but it's just inching in little ways towards that. So for example, when I was trying to get into performing more, or like when my voice was really blocked and I couldn't sing very much, it's not like I'd be like, I'm going to get up and do an open mic and do a gig. It was more like, I'm just going to, when I'm out and about, or when I'm at home even, when I'm at home even, I will actually just sing, I'll just like whistle while I work, or I'll find little ways to, when others are around, make sounds that are singing like, because then that's a little step towards getting up in front of people and singing. And you can switch singing with anything, in order to give yourselves behavioural stretches in your day-to-day that help bring a little bit more of you into your interactions. The other thing is trying to shift from an ego to a task-oriented approach. And this, I'll do another video on this, but basically the question of, rather than like, how can I stand out and be exceptional and get whatever like acclaim and, all of external markers of success, which is all to satisfy the ego, and the ego is important, but what we can do is shift that question and shift that drive from ego, how can I get successful, to how can I be of service? So how can I like offer something of value to the world and the society by being myself and offering what I have to offer in my authenticity. And that relates to this idea of channeling, and that when we are guided by love and guided by our heart's callings, that we can channel and really just, bring forth love and light into the world. And there might be many forms that this might take, but I think people can feel it, and they can feel your connection in this way when you go about your day in that way. So that was a video on visibility. If you want any guidance around how to be visible, how to be visible in your branding or your creative work or whatever it is, I've had to go through that process a lot. I can also talk about a lot of the shadows around that, which I'll also do in a video in terms of compulsive creativity and exhibitionism, and we'll save that for another time. But for now, if this has been valuable to you, please comment below how you find navigating being visible and showing up as yourself in person or for others or in your work. Comment below, like, subscribe, share, and find out more about Heart School and our community events and one-to-one coaching services in the links. Lots of love.